Hello, I'm Ian Scales, you're watching TelecomTV, and we're here at Smart IoT London, and I'm going to be talking to Bill Clee, who is the CEO of a company called Asset Mapping. We're going to be talking about asset mapping. Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
To TelecomTV.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, give me a definition. What's asset mapping for people who don't know?
Asset mapping is quite simple. We show the location, the health of a device, a piece of equipment. So that can be anything from an air conditioning unit, CCTV, or a photocopier, a printer.
So it's more than just mapping it, it's also putting a stethoscope up to it as well to assess.
Absolutely, yeah. It's understanding its health, and when it gets sick, when it has a fault, that triggers an event that tells an engineer to come and fix it.
Okay, so that's a good, almost straight IoT application in fact.
IoT is something we use, and it enables what we're doing.
Yes.
And there's lots of technologies out at the moment that have allowed, like big data, cloud computing,
Yes.
that has allowed the application of what we do.
Okay, now tell me where it started, because I think that's an interesting story. I believe you sort of got the germs of the idea for asset mapping at the Olympics, which is what now, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, nearly coming up 4 years. I worked at the Olympics. My background is a design engineer, and as you can imagine, a very complex project that we couldn't change deadlines. And the big issue was we were changing the design daily and printing drawings and giving those to the field engineers. So every time that design changed, they would always have the wrong information. So quite simply, we took the data from what's a CAD system, an engineering drawing, and put it straight onto a Google map. So the engineers always had access to the latest design. So that was really where the idea came from. And we couldn't find a similar solution to purchase during the games. So that was the original idea.
So there you went. And then you did a startup. Tell us about that briefly.
Did a startup. I became fascinated with the problem. I had the background knowledge to understand it. So we then started looking at not only can we show the location, but when the engineers install it, solve the device, in this case it was a CCTV camera, they could add more data, such as its name, its serial number. And then thinking about this, we could go a next step, which is once it gets connected, we could pull the live data that actually tells us it's there. So it's quite a simple concept. And then after the games, we started looking at how we apply that to buildings. My domain expertise is buildings, but pretty much you can apply that to any device if it's important to you.
Or any environment. Tell some of the environments where you think it might work or is working already.
Like I say, we initially focused on buildings. We've started to work with device manufacturers, so they have lots of a large portfolio of equipment like printers. So they need to know where they are, how many pages they printed, what the ink levels are. So we've worked with device manufacturers to add that additional awareness of their equipment. We're working in Manchester, which is called the CityVerve IoT Smart Cities project. And we'll be looking at connecting every new device that comes into the city. So CCTV cameras, smart lampposts, lighting systems, parking systems. You even have lampposts that you can talk to. You can scan a barcode and it will give you information. So pretty much anything can be connected.
Connected.
Yeah.
And asset mapped. Tell me about your technology that you're using then. Presumably these objects can be very diverse in terms of the types of data they have to return and the signaling they have to make. Tell me how you're doing it in a manner that makes it economical and viable for you to offer it as an application.
Well, okay, and that's interesting. Is as a startup, to work with companies, large companies, we have to have something that's different. So the way we've approached this is by having an open and agnostic system. So we can communicate with all the different proprietary platforms. That's Honeywell, Siemens, Schneider. So we've developed some drivers, and worked with. It's called HyperCAT IoT project, which means we can use open standards to connect these devices to share that data in a open way, and that allows us to almost put the onus back to the device manufacturer. So they can write an API, a driver, and send that information to our platform.
Right.
But we've been working with lots of organisations on their platforms, such as Cisco, Intel, Salesforce, to make sure all this information works together.
Now, I have heard of HyperCAT, and I wonder
Okay.
how that's going, because that's a mammoth task, and you've got to get the buy-in from a lot of vendors, right across the piece to make it work as a scheme. How viable is that, and how quickly are they getting people on board?
It's starting to happen. I mean, Manchester, it was a prerequisite to that project that companies used HyperCAT. So it's getting there. I mean, it's still new. It's still a couple of years old. There is buy-in, and there is large companies starting to use it. Some of our clients, by default, are using HyperCAT. I think it will really start taking off in Manchester, where we also get the developers, the techies, using that standard. But it's an amazing solution, because it allows a device to pretty much declare what and who it is. You can say, hey, look, I'm this device, this is my location, and here's my data. So that changes everything from almost being a systems integration play to almost a infinite plug and play architecture.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what needs to change in IoT.
Yes.
And also the security. So it's allowed for a lot of these
Yes,
issues.
but the problem is, how do you institute that take up? I mean, it might be that because a lot of these are city initiatives, the government has to mandate that as part of the procurement process.
I think that certainly will happen. I mean, there's lots of examples, but I think it's also getting the interest from the developers, the hackers, the techies, that find it an easy way to work with other companies. And we're seeing that with some of our partners, where as soon as we know they're using HyperCAT, that integration becomes seconds, it becomes immediate. And that will, and it doesn't really matter what standard somebody's using, as long as they use one. And there's OIC, IIC, HyperCAT. But we need to start sharing a similar language. And it's the same as almost the .com, when you had AOL and they insisted on their modem and their dial-up and their browser and their content.
Sure.
And that didn't work. And as soon as we had things like XML, HTML, people would start sharing data.
Right.
And it became a lot richer.
No, understood. It's just that you've got to get that. You've got to pick one and get it out there, and that's the difficult.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the difficult part.
And I think that's a challenge with the UK. I mean, we are an island off Europe somewhere. So to get the US companies, the Chinese companies who are doing a lot of this development involved, is going to take a lot of work.
Okay.
But I think that will be through demonstration rather than insisting it must be used.
Yes. So what connection technologies do you use? I presume you're fairly open about that. You're using some of the low powered technologies that we're seeing developing at the moment.
Absolutely, and I don't think the application of those technologies really depends on what it's going to be used for. I mean, LoRa is a fantastic technology for things like parking, but for buildings and some of the systems we work with, it has to be real time. So there we are looking at Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. Bluetooth, the issue is normally batteries for us, but it doesn't matter about how we get the data. As long as we get it and we understand its time frame, whether it's real time, near time, or transactional time, we can still pull that in and make use of it.
Exactly, yes. Okay, well, Bill, thank you very much. That's very interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.